Is this it? Am I on? Am I live? Am I on? Am I on? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Am I on? Okay then. Hey, this is Randy with the Valentine Goose channel coming at you, also known as Star Thinker. Wasn't sure what this video was going to be about. Just haven't put one out in a while. There's a couple things I was going to touch on, and one is that I collect things, and yes, um, I'll interspace some of these with what I collect. And I'm going to show you right here. This is, that was my most expensive piece right there. And there's another giraffe right there that I got as a gift from a friend. Where's mute on here? Here we go. And my ruby spider and stuff from my son's weddings. A vase from Japan. So yeah, I just, whatever I collect, and there's a Tinkerbell right there, a glass Tinkerbell, and the giraffes. I have more giraffes than you can shake a stick at. Oh, man, look how dusty these shelves are. I know I haven't cleaned them in a while. But yeah, focus. That's a giraffe that was hand carved from a student we sponsored from Tanzania. That was one I got free from a museum because they broke something of mine. But I can't remember the story behind those. The beaded one is from South Africa. A kid made it for a friend of mine. And my son got the giraffe standing on a zebra. And, oh, there's just giraffes everywhere. And sometimes I don't even notice where they are anymore. My ex. Let's see. My squirrel. There's other things on here. I have a small bell collection. But yeah, I collect things. And let me get out of this. Oh, puzzles. I have a ton of puzzles. You can't stump me with the puzzle. Oh, and there's those two little ones you just saw at the end there. They were part of a challenge. I was at a mineral show, and they had all the little animals that they because this is wholesale, and they were selling them to tourist shops and stuff. Because yeah, I know if you ever been to a tourist shop, you've seen the little carved animals, and I saw the one giraffe, and I'm looking because he had them all spread out on this huge table. And I'm looking. Finally, he came over and says, "Are you looking for something specific?" I said, "Yeah, I'm looking for giraffes. I only found one so far." He said, "Oh, I got hundreds of giraffes." I'm looking, I'm going, "I don't think you do." And he's like, "Yes, I do." And I said, "I'll tell you what. This was like in the morning. This was one of the first booths I came to when I came into the show." I said, "I'll tell you what. I'm going to be here all day. I'll come back in a few hours or before closing, and I will buy every giraffe you can find." So I went through the whole show, and I came back, and he was still like over the table doing this, and he had a bin. I mean, he had a big bin full of them. He must have had tens of thousands of these things, and he was scooping through the bin and stuff, and I mean, he took it seriously. So I got back, and he had the one I saw, and another one. He had two, and that's why I got those two little micro giraffes. Oh, what else do I got here? Yeah, I got giraffes of all shapes and sizes, stuffed giraffes. These two giraffes bought at an antique show in Tennessee. Just some onyx. Oh, this is from Armenia, but it's a Russian stacking doll. But yeah, that's just another few of the things I see. And this one I found in the desert, which is really bizarre because what a coincidence. And then the more handmade ones. There's a giraffe in that mug. Giraffes everywhere. Big giraffe holder. And I also collect Tinkerbell stuff. And this is where people give me a lot of grief. And I'm like, no one gives me grief about my bell collection, my giraffe collection, my crystal, and there's two more giraffes right there. And I also have pins. I collect pins. Some of these pins are worth hundreds of dollars, and the Christmas ornaments and necklaces and stuff. Um, but yeah, I collect all kinds of things, and I've explained, I think, in a couple other videos, um, what why I collect Tinkerbell stuff, and it began because my kids bought a bumper sticker on my car that had Tinkerbell on it, and they thought it was funny, and I went out and I bought a few more stickers for the car, just to show them that, like, yeah, you're not getting me. I'll show you. I'll put my own Tinkerbell stickers on there to show you it doesn't bother me. And I came across some pins one day, and the Disney pins are like a huge. Just look up Disney pin trading, and you'll find there's a whole world out there. And I picked up some Disney pins, and I was going to put them in my car. And as I was looking at them, I was like, some of these are really nice, and I purchased them, and like I said, when you start a collection, it's a matter of seeing something, going, oh man, that belongs in my collection, and it's like I've seen stuff. I've seen some rare ones, like ones that pop up on eBay but are sold before I can even click on them, and I'm like, oh, I gotta have that one. That one is so rare, and then I search and search, and 6 months later, that might show up at another eBay auction, and I'm like, ooh, buy it now, boom, and yeah, that's how it starts, and the between the bells, the giraffes, and the Tinkerbells, those are the ones that stuck with me. I've collected other things. I collect antiques. You saw my minerals. I don't have a lot of minerals, but I collect any mineral that catches my eye. I have crystallized lead, which is really cool. Um, I have a lot. I mean, that's a whole nother show. I have a lot of really cool crystals. Um, but yeah, it's just collection. It's just like Don. Whoops. Don Juan up here. Um, Saw that in an antique store, and I happened to mention it to my niece, and next thing I know, my niece had purchased it and sent it to me. And I'm like, oh, you didn't have to go through all that trouble. Um, it's worth it's worth a pretty penny, but not too much. Um, you can see he's missing his sword. His hands are, because he's holding a sword. Um, and one of these days, I'm going to recreate that sword and put it back in there. So that brings down the worth of it, but it's still worth more than what she paid for it. So she was like, "Oh, I finally made a deal at an antique store." Um, Excuse me for a minute. Damn COVID. Anyway, that's it really. I was just talking. People keep saying, "Oh, he's obsessed with Tinkerbell." I'm not. I'm obsessed with my collection and getting the rare things in there. There's there's one that I can't find. I saw it once, and I actually saved the picture of it, but I didn't. It was on some rare website, and I went back later, and it was gone. And I've been trying to find that one ever since. And sometimes, like, there was one, the Five Golden Rings Tinkerbell, and once I got that, I mean, that was like, oh, that was like the crown of my collection. I didn't collect any for like 6 months after that. So yeah, and then you start looking, you're like, oh God, that one there, that was only issued to people of a yacht club in a certain year, and there was only like 200 of them made, and here's one for sale. Not only that, but you start to know these things, and that's kind of rare in itself. But yeah, collecting is a lot of fun. If you don't collect, I'm sure everybody collects something. I can't imagine not collecting anything. And when I'm in an antique store, I look for the old Vedic bells, and I look for claw bells, and there's certain bells that I will buy. I have a silver bell, and you saw that in the video earlier in my cabinet. That silver bell is like a big chunk of silver, and when you ring it, my God, the ring is just, it fills the house with the ring, and it's such a small bell, and it was actually from India, and I love that. I found that in the antique store, and I was with a friend. I'm like, I wonder what this bell sounds like. And they go, "Don't you dare!" And I went, "Bang!" And like everybody in the store just froze, and I was like, "Man, that's loud!" And she's sitting there going, "My ears, my ears!" And so it was like a lot of money. And I came back the next payday, and it was. I said, if it's still there on my payday, I'll get it, because it was like a couple $100, and it was there, so I grabbed it, and yeah. So bells or something I collect. And then I'm going to segue into my next topic. I created this book. I love to make puzzles. I love to make codes. And yeah, there's codes I make that are hard to crack because you got to have all the information. And if you don't have all the information, there's no way you're going to crack them. It's like, well, I mean, you can always brute force a code, but that's ridiculous. But let's say I had a poly be a square, and normally do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 across the top, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 down the side. And I give you clues that are in groups of 5, and that's probably the only hint I'll give in this one. Groups of 5, and because that's a funny one, but no one solved it yet. But if you see groups of 5, you immediately think probably be a square. So if you arrange them and you're not getting anything, and I always do it 2 ways. I'll do it like, because a probably be a square, you always have 2 numbers like 1 and 4. So do you count 1 and then 4 down, or do you count 1 down and 4 over? So I always do it both ways, and that way, if you do it one way and give up, then it might have been the other way. But let's say, it's a poly be a square with a keyword, and a keyword is you put some letters in the top row, and then you do the alphabet minus those letters, and that way it gets scrambled a little bit. So that's one way to secure a poly be a square, to make it harder to solve. You might also make it to where you number it from the bottom, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and you number it backwards. But how would you know this? I mean, if you see groups of 5 and you're just getting gibberish, how would you know that? There's another puzzle that says, reverse the poly be a square, or put a keyword in first, and the keyword is this, and but that puzzle might be a little bit simpler to solve. It might be a simple Caesar shift, or just another poly be a square that's simple to solve, that's done the common way, with the I and the J in the same square. And it's like, you got to solve that puzzle first. So if you got one puzzle, you get gibberish and nothing's working, and you got the other puzzle and it says something, and you're like, well, what the hell does that mean? What does it mean start with 5 down to 1, and maybe you solve that one first, and then you come to the other one, and you're like, oh, that's what he meant, start 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And yeah, but they're all in there, and they all have ways to solve it. And sometimes it might be 3 deep. You might have one puzzle that tells you how to solve another puzzle, and that puzzle tells you how to solve the third puzzle. It's just a matter of doing it. So people who have accused me of saying things like, not saying things, but like, oh, your book is so hard, it's not solvable, it's not worth the money, it's not worth the drive to Denver, and people have doubts. And I'm like, that's your decision. I don't make decisions for you. If you think you have enough to drive to Denver and you don't find anything, that's not on me. That's, when you solve all the puzzles, you will be absolutely sure of where it is, because there's no doubt. And I've said this 100 times before. If you solve all the puzzles, it will take you to within, like, I think I measured it a finger's length from the token. You'll go right to that spot, and then of course once you're there, you can't miss it. Um, but hey, some people get frustrated and they say, I can't solve this puzzle, and I'm like, yeah, but other people have, so I know it's solvable. But I can't answer. I'm not going to answer and give hints and clues. I gave this one, but it was to a puzzle, because I have some puzzles in there that are standalone puzzles, and they stand alone. And so solving those puzzles don't really scare me or make me worry, because I'm not trying to create a book that's unsolvable, and I'm not trying to create a book that was so hard that no one can solve it. I tried to create a book that was entertaining. If you're into puzzles, you can do this. And I suggest you read books on codes and watch videos on codes and the history of codes and steganography, the hiding of codes, and read up on the different type of codes. But yeah, I I don't know how to answer people, and they think they're criticizing me by saying, "Oh, that's the reason no one's buying your book is because who wants to drive to Denver on a hunch?" Well, don't drive to Denver on a hunch. Wait till you got it solved. And I've said this 100 times before. I based my book on talking to other people who have done treasure hunts, and most notably Michael Stather. And I put riddles in my book, and riddles, people like riddles, and I put codes in my book because people like codes. I put things in my book that I knew people would share, and I knew if someone solved this, they would share it, and if someone went here, they would take a picture of it and put it online. And so that picture, if you can't make it to Denver, look up people who have done it. Look on Mysterious Writings, and you'll see pictures of some of these places, so you don't have to go there. But technically, yeah, someone would have had to go there and either share it, or you would have had to go there. But so far, my predictions are right. Just about everything that's been solved has been shared in some form or another. They've been shared in Zoom groups or forums. Nobody visits the Reddit page. But yeah, that was one of my things, was I knew people would share stuff. And so if you think, oh, I wonder if this is the location, Google it. Go to Mysterious Writings. If you go to Thor, there's apparently a secret Beacon Star group that you have to ask to join. But I may have peeked at it. I can tell you that there's a lot more in there than on the public side. But yeah, people are like, hey, I solved this, and this is what it comes out to, and does anyone know what that means? And they might not know what that means until the next puzzle is discovered. And that's just the way it is. That's the way I designed this book. And I think people got kind of spoiled with all the popcorn hunts that came up when Fen finished. AGK is a good example. They had a good hunt. They had good clues. But, and I've told this story before. My ex-roommate, I sent her the book, and finally one night she opened the book. She said, well, I'll look at this because there's nothing else to do. And within 4 hours, she sent me this picture of a stream with a rock in it, and there's a big tree on one side, and then a forest everywhere. And she goes, that's where it is. And I was like, wait a minute, I'm still following the route, trying to figure out the park. And she goes, well, here's the route. Can you measure this for me? And I measured it, and I'm like, okay, that's in the check zone. That's in the 10-mile, I think it was 10 miles from the road, they said. She goes, yeah, now you do this, and then Google happened to have a Google Street View of this path, and she walked the Google Street View of the path, and then she came to that spot, and I'm not sure how she even did it, but she said that's the spot. It was I think it was that day or the very next day that people had said they'd found it and claimed it. And I was like, oh, I was already like trying to get time off work and stuff to go down there. And this is just exactly what happened with the fen hunt. I was 1 week away from going, and it was found. But when Toby did a walkthrough, of course, when they hit it, they took their own pictures, and he said, and here's a picture where we hit it. It was the stream with the rock in it and the tree, and you could put them side by side, and they were nearly the same picture. And so it took one person 4 hours to solve that hunt, and the other people said, yeah, we solved it pretty quickly too, but the trail was closed, and it was closed due to flooding or something. And they're like, we didn't want to get caught on a closed trail because you get fines and stuff for that. And man, so, and I think people get spoiled with stuff like that, or someone puts out a hunt and it gets solved in 30 minutes because in a Zoom meeting 50 people got together, and with all that knowledge, you're not talking about one brain and one brain's knowledge. You're talking about 50 people, 50 brains, and 50 knowledges meshed together in a big meshy brainy knowledgey thing. And yeah, the group solved, and they figured out Copper Dan's hunt pretty quickly, and they figured out some other hunts, and I think and I've seen other people fall into the trap of emailing people. That's why I refuse to email people. I don't give out any personal information. If you have a question for me, put it in the Facebook group. Or if you send me I've done this before too, someone might have sent me an email and say, hey, this statue got torn down. Is that going to affect the hunt? And rather than answer them personally, because then they would have information that no one else had, I'd go to the public page. I said, hey, somebody asked me this, and here's the answer. And that way, I've answered the question, but I've answered it fairly in front of everybody. And that's the way I do things. So if you have a question, don't send me a question like, how do you solve this puzzle? Because I'm not going to answer questions like that. But if you answer, there are some questions that are legitimate, like the statue getting torn down. And there was a lot of statues. There was a lot of riots in 2020. Some statues got torn down that I'd mentioned in the book. And, I had to address that. One part got torn apart, and I had to hold my breath while they put it back together to see if they put it back together in the same way. And they did, so I didn't have to really say anything about that. And I also have contingencies in place. So let's say clue number 5 gets ripped up and it's gone forever. I will put in the Facebook group, hey, this was clue number 5. Here's a picture of it. I won't tell you what to do with it, but here's a picture that I intended you to see for boots on the ground. And I can't do that with everything yet. I thought about doing that with all the stuff that is solved, but I thought I'd wait till everything was solved as far as the boots on the ground locations before I would put a picture up and say, yeah, this is for people who are joining late. Here's what's solved, But yeah. And if you don't like that, I can't help that. And I have no hard feelings. Some people, I don't know, they want a different kind of hunt. And if you want a different kind of hunt, go out and find that kind of hunt. The secret is still out there, although it's assumed a lot of the places can't be dug into anymore. Burying something, I think that's just a bad idea. I would never bury anything. The secret, the whistle pig is still going. I can't even recall which ones I was working on. Naomi Speck. I still, at work, that's like, I get to work early. Sometimes I get to work like 2 hours early. So I'm just there by myself, and I'll pull up the clues, and I'm looking, I'm like, what? Because there's supposedly a way to know which book the Beale cipher is based on, and I'm so stumped on that one, and it's driving me insane. And that's kind of a riddle one, you know. There's hunts that are based on riddles, and I put that in my book. There's 10 locations that you have to find by solving a riddle. That's not a cipher. And then there's stuff you do with that, and that takes you to the next level of puzzles. And I don't know, that's the way I work. And like I said, it's just like the people who are like, oh, Forrest Fenn was a fake and he never hit anything, blah blah blah. I'm like, then why are you participating in these forums and these chats if you think he was a fake and you think I don't know, it's just weird. It's weird to me the way people act. But in any case, those are two things I wanted to address. I always wondered, just sitting here, let me look around, you know, whether I was in arm's reach of a giraffe or a Tinkerbell. If I had two arms, there's Tinkerbells right there. I'm sure there's a giraffe over here somewhere. Oh, I can show you that on my camera here. Boo, 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 boo. I also collected piggy banks for a while, and I gave up on that because that wasn't exciting for me. There were no rare piggy banks that I had to have. So that kind of drifted off, but I still have all the piggy banks. I was collecting cameras for a while. I kind of stopped collecting the cameras just like with the piggy banks, but I still had probably 25 vintage cameras of different things. And I heard about this woman in Texas who was really into old photography. And I boxed them all up and I sent them to her, and it's kind of a birthday present. So that was a neat surprise for someone. And I don't know, there's not much else I collect besides those things. And the other antiques, you saw them in that little portion before. I was just like, sometimes I'll see something and I'm like, oh, I gotta have that. And the puzzles, I don't buy any puzzles myself, but my kids, they'll buy me a puzzle and bring it to me, and it's kind of a challenge to see who can buy a puzzle I can't solve. And I've solved literally all the puzzles except one. There's one that's defeating me. I haven't watched a YouTube video on it, but the guy did it so fast I couldn't. And I was like, okay, now I'm going to try and figure this out. I cannot do it. And so my son is winning the prize so far as stumping dad on getting a puzzle he can't solve. There's other puzzles where people are like, and I swear this is true, they go to the puzzle store, like in the Mall of America and stuff, and they'll be like, I need a puzzle that's your highest level puzzle. And the guy goes, well, okay, this is the highest level puzzle. No one can solve this. They bring it to me, and I'm like, within 3 minutes, I got it apart. And, you know, then it's always a little bit longer to put it back together. And they're just like, how do you do that? How, you know, the one with the nail and the wood in a bottle. And I was like, oh, look, I got it apart. We were just talking, and I was just kind of fiddling with it while we're talking. And I pulled it apart. I was like, see, that's not so hard. And I thought the hard part is going to be putting it back. And I fiddled with it some more. And just as they were leaving, I was like, oh, look, it's back. They thought for sure that one was good. That was one that, like the guy said, I got one in the back that no one can solve. We don't even put it on the shelf anymore. And yeah, there you go. 3 minutes. So, anyway, I just been rambling on. Rambling. I did drop a hint, but it's a funny hint. And I knocked on wood. I don't know if you can hear that through my microphone. But I'm going to edit this together and eat some bunless hamburgers. Because I'm supposed to be dieting so bad. And play with the cats probably. They're eating my feet right now. So anyway, I'll see you guys later, and you all take care, and bye 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 bye. Bye bye now.